Okay, well, hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching or listening. Liam Hartree here today with another episode of the Simply Inspired podcast. And today I'm joined by a very, very special guest. Truly honored to have this lady on the show, Dee Wilson, who is three-time strongest woman in Scotland, 3 years in a row, is ranked third strongest in the UK, has multiple other achievements, so many that I've got a list of them here, but she's competed in Paisley's strongest, Andy Bolton deadlift, obviously Scotland's strongest woman, Edinburgh Strength Games, pulled a world record, 320 kg on the silver dollar, and there's quite a few others, Ultimate Strongman Scotland, Arnold Sports Pro. I mean, wow, something you don't hear every day. So today we're going to be talking not only about strength sports and the nitty-gritty of these achievements, but also, as always, going a little bit deeper into the mindset, the motivation, and everything that it takes to succeed in one of the toughest sports in the world. So, Dee, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for taking time to do this, basically. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It's an honor. I'm excited for this.
Likewise, absolute honor as well. So I think we will start at the beginning. Now, I don't always do these in sort of linear order, 1, 2, 3, but I think in your case, given how much you've achieved, going back to the beginning in terms of what inspired you to take up strength sports, weightlifting, the early inspiration for that. Where did that start for you, please?
So I've done powerlifting for a few years. That was kind of the sport I fell into when I started training. And I tried strongman just purely for fun one day. It was the gym that I coached from at the time. We're putting on a comp for fun. It was their first ever strong women event. And I thought, well, I'll join in and support. And I was actually going through a really, really tough time in my life personally and didn't train for months. And I felt committed to still go ahead with it. And I tried it and had the best day ever. I tried all the events. It was like a sports day for adults. It was just so different. And that was me. I was hooked on strongman from a fun comp.
Wow, from the beginning. And we'll come into that now in just a moment. But before we do, when you were in the very early stages of this, so, with that first comp that you mentioned, or even during the powerlifting time, at that time, did you expect to take this as far as you've taken it now in terms of everything you've achieved? Or at that time, was it more just the fact that you were sort of having fun, finding your feet a little bit? And I'm just curious as to what your mindset was like right in the beginning at that time,
I mean, with powerlifting, I was hungry for records, but it got boring really fast. When it came to strong women, it started as just fun, but you do have that hunger to just be better. And then you start to look up to other lifters that are doing amazing and then these bigger events. And that kind of got me hungry for wanting to win. But it was solely just for fun at the start, but you very quickly get competitive with it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fascinating for people to see or to hear about where these things started, because people look at where you're at now and it's incredible. But I'd like to go back to the start to give people that inspiration so people can see the process that you've grown through, if that makes sense. So
I definitely didn't see me being here where I am now, that's for sure. Like, I thought I'll do the sport, I'll maybe do okay at it. I didn't think I'd get to pro levels and go into Arnold's and competing alongside like people like Donna Moore and Rhiannon Lovelace and Chloe Brennan and stuff. I didn't see myself here, but I'm glad I am.
Absolutely. Yeah. Incredible achievement. And obviously you've achieved a lot in a fairly short time as well, which is something else that we'll touch on, because when you sent me the list and when I was sort of researching this, starting with, in terms of strong man, strong woman now, obviously starting with 2019, which isn't really that long ago. And you've packed in a lot. So obviously winning the first competition, placing first place in that. I mean, you can obviously we've touched on the competition itself a little bit, but when you had the result, and this is the Paisley's strongest, when you had that result, what went through your mind with, doing so well in your first competition? Because I know we can talk about the competition itself, but the bit that people don't see is what's going on in your mind and in your heart, if that makes sense. So when you realize you've done that well, what actually goes through your mind in a moment like that,
Yeah, well, like I said, I was going through a bit of a tough time mentally at that time. And I think when I won the competition, like, it gave me my bug and my love back for finding a sport that I wanted to focus on. And it just switched. There was a switch from being so negative to like my mindset just went so positive, and I just had something to focus on, and it just got me so determined and so competitive and wanting to get better and learn everything I could about this sport. So it definitely totally switched my mindset around.
Absolutely. And on the topic of coming out of sort of a rough patch, I mean, in my interviews, I don't dwell on any negativity, and I certainly don't probe people for anything they don't want to say. But just looking in terms of how you got out of that through the gym, more than anything that happened, but how you pulled out of it. Somebody's listening to this now. Imagine they're going through a tough time at the moment. They're maybe in a similar space to the space you were in mentally in one way or another. Obviously, the gym pulled you back out of that. So I'd just like to take a moment to get your advice for basically anyone listening to this who is going through a tough time, and maybe one or two words you'd say to them about what they can do about it, if that makes sense, please.
Yeah, of course. Well, remember why we do this. Most of us do this, or any sport, as our own kind of escape. That's our fun, and that's our escape from reality. We do this outside of life, and that's our time to just have that training time. So just remember why you do it. Like it's hard to stay motivated when you're feeling sad or things are going on, but taking that time out to just get it done, it'll bring your mindset back, and just remember why you do it and have fun with it, and let it be that escape and that fun, and just help push you through things, because it'll help you a lot more than you think.
Absolutely, it does. It absolutely does. And I usually get into those type of topics later on, but as soon as we've got there now, as I say, big part of the reason why I do these, and the same thing as I said before, things that people don't see from the outside looking in. People see your achievements, which are sort of practically superhuman from where I'm sitting, the weights that you lift and the things you do. But obviously, then this shows the process you took to get there, and it shows the human side. So it's a really, really good topic. So obviously, you started to have that hunger to win and to do well and everything again after this time. Now, you mentioned some of the people you've competed alongside in recent times. You mentioned Rhiannon Lovelace, you mentioned a few different people there. Were they some of the people you were sort of looking up to early on, or were there certain people that you were surrounded by, or certain people you admired very early on in your strongwoman career, like in terms of some of your idols or some of your inspirers in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I very early on looked into the sport, and Chloe Brennan was who I wanted to play. I was working for a company that sponsored Rhiannon Lovelace, so I was introduced to her strength, and to see like someone as small pulling the weights that she pulls, that was motivational. But then as you get into the sport and you start to lift alongside other athletes, you start to notice there's so many amazing athletes that aren't even in the limelight just now. It's insane. But you do start to, every comp you go into, you find someone new to look up to. That's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, because I have heard that a lot from strong men and strong women that have been on the show. There's a lot of nice mutual respect and everything in the sport, which is really cool. A lot of encouragement, a lot of seems to be like people sharing tips and that type of thing and helping each other. And you don't get that in everything. Obviously, I move around different sports. You don't get that in everything. So it's nice to touch on as well. So moving on with the competitions themselves. Now, obviously, today I'd love to talk about every single one individually, but like I said to you before, we'd be here until next week. So the way that I usually sort of condense this down a little bit is to talk about people's personal favorites, and to talk about some of the highlights and some of your proudest moments. Now, even though it sounds sort of like a sort of obvious question in a way, that I imagine certain ones, like obviously Scotland's Strongest Woman and the Arnolds, and certain things will be in there. But I love asking this because you never know which ones are going to come back, because it's different for different people. So given everything you have achieved, and it's a lot, which ones mean the most to you so far for one reason or another out of all of them? I know it's a big question, sorry, but it'll be a cool answer.
No, I think it's like there's definitely two that stand out. I mean, the last Scotland's Strongest Women that just happened, that was my best favourite comp to date, including everything I went, the Arnold's Pros and everything. That was my favourite comp to date. And I think it was just, I went in to win. I was set on, I was winning it. I wanted the third title, but I didn't expect to win every event. And I think I was like surprised myself. And I think I put on the best performance I could have put on, and that's what I was proud of. So I think that's probably the one I'm the most proud of recently anyway. But I think another one that stands out is the Ballycallan Stones Games, because it's natural stones. And it was just it's a big group of friends and family, and it's just a nice feeling. And you're lifting with all like my favourite person in the sport is Izzy Tate. Everyone knows that. And I get to share a lift with her, and we just lift stones and kilts, and it's a fun day. So I think in terms of being proud, I think last Scotland's was definitely the top. But overall, one of my favourites is the natural stones, just for the family feel.
Yeah, just for the connections. Well, it's a big part of it, isn't it? The people you meet along the way, the people you get to know and become friends with, and all this sort of thing along the way. It's a very, very good part of it. And you also mentioned to me that when you sent over the list, as long as my arm of I love it though. I love it. I mean that as a sincere compliment. But you mentioned that this last Scottish Championship, this last one was your best performance overall. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I believe it says here, won every event, easily my best performance to date. And I could practically feel your passion coming through
Yeah.
the message, to be quite honest. And again, wonderful thing. The world needs more passion. So can you share with us your thoughts on how that's your best performance and what that side of it means to you in that way, please?
I think because going into things, my entire, about 3 years I've done the sport, it's not that long. But every competition I've had the past 3 years, there's always been like, it's been a mental situation. I went into it with a little bit of like, I'm being ready physically, but mentally I've had stuff going on, or there's always been some sort of barrier I'm fighting against with my motivation and stuff. And I think this Scotland's the best performance overall, mentally and physically. I approached it with the best mindset I've ever had, and I was physically as ready as I could be. But I think it was just a good combination of being mentally and physically ready. That was the first I've ever experienced that in every comp I've done. So I hope that stays.
Absolutely. Well, the best so far, and I'm sure with yourself, Dee, that the best is yet to come as well, because we'll talk about the future plans as well, because I'm sure there's some big things coming. But before we do, I'd also need to touch on some of the behind the scenes stuff, and then we'll come back to some more competition. So what I mean by that is obviously your general training and the mindset. Talking about the general training first, obviously it'll be a lot to cover. So same type of thing, breaking it down, your favorite parts of training, your favorite parts of being in the gym, because it's not just a training regime. I mean, it's a lifestyle of what you do. It's a whole lifestyle in there, in different areas. So basically, what do you enjoy most about the training aspect and what you do every day in that way?
I think it's just that feeling of achievement when you're moving weights. That's, if you use your body weight as an example, when you start pressing your body weight above your head, or you're deadlifting 3 times your body weight, it's just that feeling of, I like feeling strong. I don't know if it's the wee man syndrome in me because I'm only 5 foot tall, but I like feeling big and strong. And it's no matter how rubbish you feel, if you go in and you lift and you achieve it, it just gives you that boost that you need, the positivity and confidence that just to get through. And I just love that feeling of, I'm going in to get something and I've achieved it. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is great on many levels, setting the goals and achieving them, and the endorphins. And there's a lot of things, that
Yeah, especially if you get a lift, like if you're struggling with a lift and you can't get by a barrier and you're challenging it, because you get like a log, or for example, you fight and gets to a sticking point for about 3-4 months. And when you get over that sticking point, you're like, yes, I'm over the hurdle. And it just feels nice to like it's finally paid off all the hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it because again, as I said before with these interviews, you're touching on some of the things that people don't see. And I'm obviously, I'm sure you post about it and things like that, but getting a feel for what it's like in the gym is super cool. And other athletes watching will know this, but for the spectators, it's sort of the side of things that's like new to them. So it's very, very cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the mindset thing, and obviously, again, big passion of mine, big interest of mine personally. Mental preparation for competition. I mean, you have to have a strong mind and a strong will, and everything to do what you do. So it sounds like you've been through a little bit of a process with that. What is your mental approach to training and to the build up? Like, say, when you're coming up on a competition, what's sort of going through your head on the build up to it?
So I try and always, with training in general, I try and leave as much, I'd leave life out of it. When I'm training, it's just about training. My mind should just be there. And I can always tell when a rubbish training session is going to happen, because if I can't get my head just in the gym, it's going to overtake. But in the lead up to comp, I always spend the week before just doing things that make me happy. So things that I don't have time for usually if I'm training all the time, I'll go visit family. I like going by the water with some friends and just chilling out. And I just try and stay as relaxed as possible, and that's just the kind of approach I take. If I stay nice and relaxed and stress free that week, then I'll have a good mindset and try and visualize. So on the lead up to Scotland's, I spent the month lead up to just visualizing myself on the podium with my Scotland flag, and I just keep that visualization because then I'm setting that goal instead of any negative barriers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some of these things, obviously handling the stress, but the visualizing thing that comes up time and again, when I interview people, it seems to be a real cornerstone of something that people need to do. And again, the other thing, Dee, what's cool about what you're sharing here is people can apply some of these lessons that you've learned along the way to any life area as well. So even if it's with sports, but people can apply this to like their education or their business life or other things as well. Some of the lessons you've learned. So it's really, really, really cool.
Yeah, I always try and say to people, if they visualize themselves failing it or not doing it, they're already setting that barrier. So you've already made your mind up if you're already telling yourself you're going to fail it. So you need to get out of that mindset and just think about achieving it, and just try and put it in your brain that you're going to get it and visualize it, and then you'll work harder towards it. Just try and keep that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. It is having that rock solid belief as if it's already happened in a way, even though you're looking towards it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And with the mindset stuff as well, I think something else that will interest people here is about the concept of the pain barrier as well, because obviously with what you do, there's amazing achievements and there's the recognition and all these things and proving to yourself what you can do and all these amazing things. But there is obviously bound to be a lot of pain. So in terms of your mental process for just sort of pushing through that, what do you do in that way?
But to get over the pains and stuff.
Yeah, basically, I mean, obviously, when you are lifting and when you're actually in the moment, not so much in terms of recovery. I'm saying that we can talk about that as well, but I was thinking more like when you're actually lifting, obviously, as a feeding back into the strong mindset thing, you have to be able to push through the pain and sort of discipline yourself to keep going, and just how you do that, really.
I mean, like I'm quite well known for being one of those lifters that just, it's either get the lift or let whatever's going to happen and fail it. Like I've peed on deadlifts, as a lot of girls have, but it was the first time I was going to pull 200, and I was either going to pee myself or get the lift, and I was like, well, I'm going to get the lift because that's what I'm here for. So things like, you have to try and, yeah, it'll hurt, or yeah, you'll be sick, or yeah, you'll pee, or whatever. Like, it's pushing through. I've spewed through deadlifts, but I'd rather keep spewing and finish my reps than lose. So it's you've got to have a different mindset to switch off from pain. Things like, you have to be a different mindset to push through pain for things. I've seen people, Donna Moore's an example, actually. She tore her bicep on a comp and still finished a stone run. It's learning to have that mindset to be like, no, I'm here to do this, and I'm going to switch off the pain for this time and just finish it and then deal with it afterwards. But then what comes with that is a lot of people overtrain and then end up with injuries and stuff. That's what you don't want to go for. So it's listening to your body more than anything. If you think you can push through that little pain or sick or whatever to finish the reps, do it. But if you think it's going to do you worse damage, then learn to be in tune with your body to stop. Like, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that is really cool, actually. No, really, because I mean, yeah, being in tune with your body and not being totally rigid that I'm doing this and doing that, and giving it the flexibility. Again, a few people have mentioned that, but yeah, I mean, fair play to you. That's all I can say. I mean,
think there's like a kind of fine line between like being an aggressive lifter and a bit of an ego lifter, and it's finding that line to be aggressive and approach it and finish it, but don't also let your ego take over and injure yourself and push too hard. So find that line between them.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I want to touch on here, sort of to do with competitions, but more broadly, is in terms of the recognition that you get. Obviously, in terms of like, well, as I said before, 3 years in a row, Scotland's Strongest Woman. Some of these things you're doing now, and the recognition and the feedback you get from like your community, your friends. I mean, even your family and how they are around competitions. How do you sort of deal with, or what are your thoughts on the feedback that you get in terms of being well known and well respected in what you do? Because don't get me wrong, you're obviously very, very, very humble, but you're bound to get a lot of this positive attention. I'm just curious what that's like for you, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's a bit surreal. It's a bit surreal sometimes. Like, there was one of the comps we had to do a meet and greet at the end, and there's everyone and kids and stuff wanting photos and wanting you to sign things, and it's a bit surreal because you just think of yourself as a lifter, like, and yeah, when you get to a level, yeah, I'm a good lifter, like you used to believe that, but you don't get to a point where you start believing. I don't know, it's strange when people want photos and they look up to you, or you get these nice messages that you motivate me to do this, and I'm like, it means a lot. It really means a lot, and it makes me feel nice and full with a lot of love, because I just do this sport because I love it, like, and it keeps me in a good mental place, and I just enjoy it. So to know that other people are looking up to me and stuff, it's quite nice. But I don't think I believe it yet. I'm just like, why do you want to follow me?
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but it's very cool because of what you said there, the inspiration, the hope and the positivity that you sort of give out to people. I think is a wonderful thing. And I mean, it sounds very cliche, doesn't it? But the fact that what one person can do, another person can do, in the sense of not specifically all the accolades you've got, but the fact that, if you can come through these hard times and you can win big in a few years that you've been doing this, and you can do these type of things, it shows other people what's possible for them, and I know it, like I say, it does sound cliche, but it's so true, and people need that in their lives. People need that, someone who's been through what they're going through, and it's just a wonderful impact that you have, I think, to be honest.
I think it's a great sport. You see so many people, and being in the sport, their background and stuff. There's like a few other lifters that have got like life problems, or they've got health issues, or they've got kids with disabilities that they care for full time and stuff. There's so many people with different backgrounds, and you wouldn't know it because they're just out there killing the sport. But in the background, they've got all this life stress going on and all these barriers. But everyone's got barriers in place, no matter how big and small they are. It's whether you want to push through and do it.
Absolutely, yeah, amazing answer. I mean, it's really, really good on the inspirational topics. I have to ask another thing. I mean, you said earlier about being, what did you say, 5 foot? So being quite tiny, basically, if you don't mind me saying. But obviously, are people surprised if people don't know you, and then you tell them like what you do and how much you lift and everything like that? Because I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but I can sort of imagine people raising a few eyebrows and everything. Does that ever happen to you if you meet people sort of outside the sport and you tell them what you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting because when I was a kid, I was one of those kids that was really underweight and on build-up shakes, and everyone knows me as Wee Dion. And then if my people are like, "Oh, how's Wee Dion?" to my mum, she's like, "She's not so wee anymore." And it's funny as well when you see people and they're like, "Oh, you look taller on Instagram," and I'm like, "Nope, I'm 5'1" on a good day." And the stone platform starts at my height at cops. So yeah, people are quite, they don't expect it. And then when you tell them what you lift as well, if you meet them first, they're like, "What, you can move that? Like, that's bigger than you." It's quite funny. It's quite interesting to see their faces.
Yeah, I can imagine you can probably have some fun with that, and it's probably a little bit of a conversation starter, or maybe a stopper sometimes when they have that initial shock. But it's very, very cool, because again, it shows there's no limits on these things. What you want to do, you can do. So coming back to a couple of competitions, as we said, we won't have time to talk about them all, but obviously placing third in Britain as well, I think, is one that needs to be sort of touched on. Now, with this, I don't really have the specific question about, this aspect of the competition, this aspect. What I usually do with this, if I hone in on something over here, or miss something over here because you were the one who was there. So basically, just to describe it in your own words and to describe your memories and what stayed with you from that amazing achievement, what you enjoyed best about it, just anything you'd like to say about that one, really.
My favourite thing about Britain's, the day in general was just a great day. It was a summer's day, and it was there with like some of the greatest athletes. And I came third, but I got bet by someone I look up to, Jenny Todd. She's an amazing lifter, an amazing coach, incredible human being. But it was just a fun day because between events, like all the girls were just hanging about in the sunshine and warming up, and it was just a good experience to do. That was my first time doing Britain's as well, and to get third, I was happy with that. Like, to go from a like Scotland's is, you can get great in Scotland, but Britain's, that's just opening up a whole new can of amazing lifters, and some of the girls in England are incredible. So it was a good experience, and it was my first time doing it, so it was good fun. I enjoyed every minute of it. But this year, I want more than third, so we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, the future is very bright as well, and we will come to that
Yeah.
very shortly as well. What was the other one I was going to ask you about? Oh yeah, and of course the Arnold Sports Pros as well. Same type of thing. You know, your memories from that. I mean, I'm just picking a few highlights here. There's, like I keep saying, there's too many. I'd love to talk about them all. I'm resisting the temptation. I am, at the moment to go off in different ones. But yeah, the Arnold's same type of thing, please. You know, your memories from that and everything.
I remember we had to go the day before the Arnold started, so it was a Friday, Saturday comp events, and we had to go over on the Thursday, and they showed us around like the venue and stuff. And I remember being like, "Holy, this is amazing!" Like I'd done a kind of small pro event before then, but this was the real pros. Like you're standing next to Mitchell Hooper and Big Z and stuff, and you're going right, and it was just for me, it was just the level of professionalism and how it was run over the 2 days and the structure of it alongside some of the greatest lifters in the world. Like it was surreal, and I can't wait to do something like that again, but be stronger.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amazing achievement. You have touched on this year and some of the upcoming events and everything like that, but let's talk about that a little bit in terms of this because you've achieved a lot in a short time, in only a few years. It's quite amazing in itself how you've packed a lot in. Obviously, the fire's still burning bright inside you to do better and do more. So talking about the future, I mean, I don't mind how far ahead you'd like to go or how close to the present, if you get what I mean, you'd like to. I don't mind the timeline, but just to get a feel for some of the things that are lighting your fire and some of the things you're aiming for from this point forward, basically.
Yeah, so this year, my only focus was Scotland's and Britain's this year. I did have an invite to the Europes, which is happening now this weekend in London, and an invite to the Worlds in West Virginia in November, December. But I decided not to do them. I wanted to feel fully ready before going into official strongman games is like that's the next level. So I want to be fully ready. So this year, I just want to get ideally first in Britain. So that would be my happy place. And then I'm going to spend the rest of the year just building on strength for next year when I want to face the Europes and the Worlds. So I wanted to tackle Scotland's and Britain's first, and then my long-term goal is to be to be Europe's and World's strongest women. So I'm going to go start making a chip at that next year.
Absolutely incredible. Well, I tell you what, when you get there, we'll do a part two with this interview and we'll sort of update everybody on what's happened,
Yeah.
I don't say that very often, but occasionally, when people have got really big things coming up, like what you've got, I say to them, look, okay, we'll do another one. So
Absolutely.
catch up around that time. We'll do another one. In the meantime, a few other topics to touch on here. Obviously, we've talked very much on your achievements themselves, but I'd like to give a mention to the people that help athletes along the way as well, and people who've contributed to the journey, whether it's people they train with, sponsors, even family members, even if it's something more distant, like people on social media saying, good luck for this competition or sending some encouragement. What I'm trying to say, support obviously comes in different ways. So I don't mind who you'd like to thank, but it'd be good to give a mention to some of the people who've contributed to your journey,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today without the motivation and support from the people I've had. I've been very, very fortunate. And the main ones I would say is I have a private training space that we all train from. And my clients and friends have been the biggest motivation. If there's days I don't have it in me, they push me just as much as I push them. So, and my friends, they do to make sure I'm eating, they take me to comps, just the overall support in general has been amazing from family and friends. And then, of course, you've got people in the background like Cerberus and stuff. They're my sponsors. They have given me everything I need and support me that way. And then my coach, I did used to coach myself because I'm a coach, but I ended up signing up with Josh Lancaster at the start of last year. And he's been incredible as a coach. Like he just keeps me going and he's got me to where I am. So those are the main people, like my friends, family, and them.
Yeah. Well, it's great to give them a mention because obviously you're all in life, you're all in this together. But from the outside looking in, some of these people are sort of behind the scenes in a way. So it's good to give them the mention of, what they're contributing and everything like that. You mentioned coaching and everything there as well. That was something else I had in mind to touch on in terms of that. Now you'll have to enlighten me a little bit on what you do with that, but I have come across the fact it's something you do a little bit with. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, what you do with that and what it means to you to give back and to help people in that way.
Yeah, so I'm a strength coach, and my overall goal was to own a private training space that we could all have our own safe space, because I wanted to have a space where everyone would feel welcome, and there was no insecurities, and it was just straight up support. So I finally got that, and the space has just grown into this beautiful. It's just so we had a day to day where we just all met up and trained and ate donuts and just hung out, like we do things together, and it's just like, yeah, it's just a beautiful space to be in. And then I started coaching in there, and I've also worked with one of my good friends and housemate, Sam. She runs a charity called Uplifted, and what that does is kind of help support people that are kind of can't get into, they don't know how to feel, like how they feel going into commercial gyms and stuff. So it's a lot of LGBTQ work and stuff like that. So we've managed to kind of grow a space where everyone and anyone is coming along and they feel safe, and we just coach them how to get strong. But I think the biggest achievement out of that is just seeing people grow confidence. Like there are so many different levels and there's so many different types of lifters. Not everyone's strong man or woman, but just to see them grow the confidence and come into the gym on their own, off their own back, that's kind of the reason why I do the job, because it's just amazing to watch.
Absolutely. It must be amazing to give back in that way. And it's a beautiful thing because, like what you say there, I mean, first of all, being in gyms, it can be a very inclusive space where you get people from all different backgrounds mix in and everything, it's like a great homely environment. But I can understand some people, the intimidation of, okay, can I walk in there and perform as well as these people? Do I sort of stand out and things, and breaking down that barrier? That's very, very cool. Cool bit of work. So we've talked about a lot. Last couple of things, and we'll wrap this up shortly. We got a little bit of your advice at the beginning about people going through a hard time and that type of thing. One other thing I'd like to talk about on the advice topic is obviously we've talked about life lessons throughout this thing that people can apply to any area of life. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to people who are wanting to achieve a big goal or a big dream, in their lives, obviously in sports, but obviously this can feed into other life areas as well, like I said before, like business, like education, like other things, especially for people who are just getting started or wanting to get started. It'd be great to get maybe sort of one or two things you'd like to share with them that they need to do to sort of succeed and reach the level that they're aiming for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. I mean, no matter what the dream is or what the sport is, I think you should obviously continue chasing all your dreams, but don't run before you can walk. Just take it in steps. Like a lot of us try and run straight to the finish line, and like I want to be world's strongest woman, but I didn't expect to just run at it last year. Or like I think you have to take the steps and be humble with it. Like look at where you're going wrong and work on that, and just take it in each step and just keep aiming for it. There will be days that you feel like you're not getting there and you're taking a step backwards, but just keep climbing towards it and break it down into the parts that you can work on and just keep going for it, because it will come. Just need to be patient with it.
Absolutely. That's some great advice there, it's something I know that obviously, you're very humble, so I don't know how you feel about giving advice, but you've learned a lot of lessons and you've obviously really grown as a person in life as well as in sport. So you're in a great position to give back. And I hope that'll filter down and sort of touch some people, even if they're people you won't meet, it'll filter down and still have an impact on them. So that's a wonderful topic. Like I say, we've talked about a lot. I mean, I always feel with people who've achieved as much as yourself, in a way we scratched the surface, because there's loads more competitions, there's loads more things, but we've talked about a nice mix of things from my point of view, with the inspiration, but some fun stories as well, and like the entertainment value, but still have an inspiration and a motivation. So I'd like to thank you for your time with this, Dee, to be honest, and I'd like to thank you for being an open book and sharing quite a bit about your life, including some of the behind the scenes things as well.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, it's been good fun. I've enjoyed it, and I'm glad you have as well. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.